I don't, are these even on? Are these? Yeah, they're just kind of.
Anthony, can you hear me back there?
What was that?
Yeah. Do I really have to use this thing? Seriously?
We heard it fine.
What?
We heard you fine.
Yeah,
Yeah, Aaron, I can hear you, so we need to move the mic further away.
yeah. So let's do this. Take two. Hello, it's still 9:30. It's Friday night. It's Monsterama. Thank you for being here. We're going to. I didn't bring my actual crowbar with me for this panel, but I should have, because we are definitely going to talk about Star Trek at Monsterama. So what I want to do is I want to let our panelists introduce themselves. We're going to start at the far end of the table and work our way back to me, and then we'll get into this thing.
Hi, everybody. My name is Gary Mitchell. Yes, really. And I am the co-director of the American. I thought the Star Trek panel people would. Okay. All right. So I am the co-director of the American Sci-Fi Classics track at DragonCon. I am also a part of the Good to Be a Geek network, where I am the co-host and producer of the horror podcast, A Podcast of Amontillado, wherever fine podcasts are sold. He's been on twice. And Star Trek is my first fandom. I can literally remember being 4 years old, having the Star Trek color forums and playing with it and watching the reruns. It's my first best fandom.
I'm Laura Walker. I've been working at Conventions for about 10 years. I love fandoms, I love conventions. And Star Trek, like, it's one of those fandoms that I don't remember the first time I watched Star Trek. Like, ever since I was little. We watched reruns of Next Generation a lot. So, yeah.
I'm Bill Bridges. I'm a writer and game designer. I have worked on Star Trek games. One of them was Interplay's Starfleet Academy computer game way back in the 90s. So long ago I don't even remember. We wrote some scripts and I don't even know which ones wound up actually in the game or not. It was so long ago. I also worked on Last Unicorn Star Trek Next Generation RPG, helped develop that, along with its Deep Space Nine spinoff. And Star Trek was one of my first fandoms. I had the Mego action figures, including the transporter set.
Yes.
I have to follow that?
Yeah. Hey, who chose to sit there?
I'm some schmuck who likes Star Trek. No, I'm still Darren Bush. I am the track director of this room. Am I in the media room or the lit? Yes. We've been a lot of cross-germination on the tracks there. I am the track director for Media Track. I am also allowed to say that I'm an award-winning science fiction and fantasy short story author. I'm the founder and executive producer of Tables of Content, which is, at the moment, a YouTube channel where a lot of people, like some of the people here, talk about movies that are just right up y'all's alley. And the idea is to become a virtual science fiction convention. That's the long-term goal, very long-term. What we're going to do right now is talk about Star Trek, right? Okay.
And explain to the lovely people the panel. You're the moderator, right?
Do what?
You're the moderator, right?
I am the moderator. It's my damn panel.
So what's the panel about?
The panel's about Star Trek monsters.
Okay.
For as long as we're going to talk about monsters until you guys don't want us to talk about monsters anymore. For those of you who may not have noticed, Nicholas Meyer is in the house. Yes, very much so. Now, I will go on the record and say, I am nerd sad that we didn't get Nicholas Meyer for this panel. He is doing plenty of stuff this weekend, so don't feel like you're missing out. But we are going to talk about him behind his back. No,
He's not going to be here.
What we're going to do is we're going to start with his work. And for those of you who actually read the description of this panel, I definitely got out the crowbar for this one, because I was like, monsters in Star Trek 2, oh yeah, that ear thing, monsters in Star Trek 6, the Romulan ambassador. So it was a stretch, but Nick is in the house. We're going to talk about Star Trek. One of the things that is really great about Star Trek, I don't know if you guys saw this, it's one of my favorite memes ever. Somebody posted, during strike, of course, they posted, oh no, there's a writer's strike and an actor's strike. What will Star Trek fans do? I guess we'll just go back and rewatch the 761 hours of programming. Yeah. And it was like, ooh, somebody counted.
To read some of the books?
Yep. And there are a lot of books out there.
Play
700
the games.
Yeah, play the games. Bill, should we play the games, Bill?
You should.
We should.
Absolutely.
And,
Not the Monopoly.
and so what ends up happening is that if you think about that number and you realize how big Star Trek is, one of the reasons why I love Star Trek is because it has done everything. Like even if it was on the holodeck, which is cheating, but still it does. Star Trek does everything. And one of the things that Star Trek does, I think, really well is it deals with one of the things we talked about already today here and on another panel is what is a monster, but also it deals with the infinite variation of what a monster can be physically, morally, chemically, whatever you want to say. So I do think there's a Monsterama adjacent conversation to be had. There are, and I'm talking about some of the people in this room, including myself, we have talked about Star Trek a lot. Because it's so much fun to talk about it. But I want to see if our esteemed panelists can dig up some monsteriness out of Star Trek. And what I want to do is I want to pick on Bill first, because he's got the street cred. And when in the games that you worked on, were you aware of or involved in any of the, let's say, the more monster-like aliens, or were there any actual monsters involved?
Well, we certainly dealt with some of the aliens in the last Unicorn game, but not in a huge amount of depth, because it was really much more about the main characters and the playable alien, races and stuff, whether you're going to be a Vulcan or a Klingon or an Andorian, etc. Not so much the monstrous ones like, I think the Gorn are in there, but I don't think they were presented as players in the first book at least. And then of course you've got all the other ones like the Mugato and stuff, and the Hortas and things, but those were, player character types. So yeah, I mean certainly the game is geared for exploration of other planets to run into those sort of things. But I will just add that I think Khan is a monster. And as a genetically engineered being with no morals whatsoever, does that make him inhuman, more than human, less than human?
Well, one of the things I would definitely agree with is that he is a monster through his actions. But we've talked about this also, is that there are ways in movies and in television for them to sort of visually signal that you're dealing with a monster. One of the funnier examples is this is one particular character who the way you know he's a monster is his knees are huge.
Torgo!
Exactly, Torgo. And so
I have a really, really big thumb.
And so one of the
How
things
about
that
my hand?
One of the things that I love when Star Trek explores this, and they've done it many times, is the thing that they're dealing with. Someone reacts to it as if it is a monster, right? It's a creature, it's whatever. And then you find out later that once either Spock mind melds with it or Picard cracks the code or something, you find out that we're dealing with a sentient, intelligent, non-humanoid entity. I'm trying not to say thing. I'm having trouble getting the word thing not to come in there. So, Laura, I know you watched a lot of Next Generation. So from your Star Trek experience, when I say monster from Star Trek, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
So it's humanoid. Lore,
Oh.
Data's brother.
Interesting.
Especially as because it was just so different than Data, and in many ways very evil. And he stuck with me more than anybody.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, it leaves an impression.
Yeah.
He is, one of the things I love about Lore is that he gives us a chance to re-explore Data, and how even though Data has some of Data is problematic because he's a construct. Yeah, Lore makes you go, oh, Data's awesome. It settles the debate if there wasn't.
Interesting.
So, Mr. Mitchell, same thing for you. What's the first thing you think about as you start your company?
The first one that comes to my mind is the very first one, and it's the salt tank.
Oh, yeah.
It's very much, like you said, it's Star Trek exploring what is a monster, because what this creature is doing is monstrous. It's killing people. But it's not malicious, it's not really evil. You get the impression from the life it had with the science guy, as long as he kept it, fed, they had a relationship. I try not to think about that relationship. You've been on that planet for a long time by yourself.
Yeah.
But when push comes to shove, that need to survive and that need to feed overwrites and makes you monstrous. Which is again a reflection of part of the human condition. We can be very monstrous when we want something, and especially if we feel like we need it to survive.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you mentioned Next Generation, I had a wholly different take, which is the skin of evil,
Yes.
which is not doing it just for survival. It's evil.
It's just evil for evil's
Yeah.
sake.
Yeah, one of the rare, I think, few Star Trek monsters that's completely irredeemable.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have no idea, it's Aramis, right? We have no idea what Aramis is,
Yeah.
but yeah, we
We
don't.
just have his word for it, and can we trust it?
Right.
Yeah,
And he's like, our race got rid of all their evil impulses and left me behind. Really?
Okay.
Okay.
You're the
Yeah.
kid, okay.
You know, I was looking to see if the Salt Vampire had a cool sci-fi, and it was just the Salt Vampire.
one of the problems I have with the salt vampire is we have salt.
Yeah, and it sucks it right out of you.
No. I mean, we have salt outside of our bodies that we could share.
Yeah, but again, it doesn't know that. It's never been on a starship.
Right.
But how? Okay, all right.
Now, just about to say something about it not being very bright.
Yeah.
This is where
If
we
it's
get in
salt
trouble.
oceans, it should be able to go down and get a whole lot of salt.
But how do
This
we?
is also before, they've got the technology to replicate everything too, so it's only whatever's in the ship stores. Who knows, maybe
I
the
will-
chef was hiding all the salt.
Okay,
Because those blueberries don't taste right, the
Yeah.
marshmallow blueberries.
My problem with the salt vampire
Salt's pretty
is
common.
that so many it's easy to make too. Like so many other imitated aliens that can imitate Kirk or whoever. There's always that moment where you realize that like they don't get it.
Mhm.
That's their flaw. Is there's something they don't understand. So like, how has the salt vampire been imitating people and living with this guy and doesn't
Well,
understand?
it's slightly telepathic.
Yeah.
It's getting
Right.
You know, but it's like an octopus changing its color to match the seafloor. It's not thinking, I need to be brown and gray now. It's just going, okay, this person in your brain is obviously very important to you, so I will look like them, so you let me close. You know,
So again, there isn't a moral choice there. There's just hunger.
right.
So
And as long as, there are a lot of actual legit animals that as long as they're fed and happy, you can live with them. Then there are hippos, which will kill you because you looked at them.
yeah, hippos are.
Hippos are mean, okay?
They're so cute, but they're dangerous.
Yeah.
So, Bill,
Yeah.
I'll let you answer that question before we go on to the next one, which is, what's your first thing you think of when I say Star Trek monster?
Star Trek monster, the first thing I think of is Gorn.
Gorn,
Yeah,
okay.
because again, I grew up with the original series as
Yeah.
much as I love the other ones I've watched them. The first one was the one that burned its way into me and stuff. And, now in, Strange New Worlds, they're trying to make the Gorn more like the alien from Aliens and stuff. They're doing
Yeah.
stuff. Whereas before, it was just another race. And it was part of a theme that I actually miss a lot in the new Star Trek series and spin-offs, and that's the idea of races rising above their conditions to become more evolved.
Well,
And so
that's
these
like the
tests.
whole core ethos of Trek, especially the original series, which I could have a rant, don't get me wrong, but especially because of the Gorn.
Yes.
That's the whole point is, I will not kill a lizard man today. And every day I will make that choice to not kill. And that's one of the things that, again, that's not the top of this panel, but that's one of the things between TOS and Next Gen for me that was lost is in the original series, that struggle was ongoing. It was that struggle to overcome our base impulses, the struggle to go from peaceful option to avoid war. And then when you get to Next Generation, it's like, we're done? No, we're evolved. We don't fight anymore.
And unless you're an admiral.
Right.
Well, the other thing though we miss is these highly advanced races who have overcome many of their problems. These examples, the Organians, or the one, I can't remember the one that was testing them, but the
So
Zorn
much.
one, and such. And, of course, you got Squire Gothos, that's the wrong kind of
I'm
one.
not sure he evolved though.
Yeah, exactly, he didn't, his parents.
Well, he was
did,
9,
but
he
he
was
was.
also-
He was in timeout.
But also, if you look at the races that were eligible to be in the Federation, whether they wanted to or not, all the war-capable races from Star Trek, especially the original series, where you're going, wait, how did they stay calm long enough to develop warp travel? If
Look, if the humans could do it,
Well, like, I'm just sitting going, if you think about the Ferengi, the Klingons, like the Romulans makes perfect sense. But the Klingons, the Ferengi, the Gorn, the Tholians, I'm like,
But if you look at,
how did they
you
get to
know,
work?
Conqueror in the movie, he's a drunk, so if a drunk can create.
Oh, now we're going there. Okay, all right.
It was like, there's one other one, and I can't think of the name of the species, in Strange New Worlds. The one in the last episode, they come back.
The Gorn.
The Gorn, okay, I thought they were the
The
Gorn, but I
Gorn.
wanted to make sure.
Yeah, that's
Change them now.
Because I looked up Gorn to try to make sure that I was right, and the picture that came up was the old one. They look so
Yeah.
Yeah, that's my only problem with Strange New Worlds, is they should have just called them a whole different.
Yes.
Yeah.
should be
Yeah.
different.
Especially because by toss, like, we don't know anything about the Gorn, yet by going by Strange New World, oh yeah, we know what the Gorn are like all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, they should have just gone with, I mean, as a Gorn fan, only Gorns, I have a subscription. I love the Gorn, and I was so happy that we were gonna see them and get the representation, and now we're not, they should be a whole different race.
So what thank you, I appreciate you guys. What I want to do is I want to go to you guys for just a couple of minutes. Anybody got a favorite Star Trek monster they want to remind us about? Mr. Liggins in the back.
I think it was species 7.
4872 to the second
Yeah.
power.
With
Oh, the ones from Fluidic Space?
Yes.
Yes.
The Borg eaters.
Yeah,
Yes.
they're terrifying.
They were.
Yeah.
I loved that the way we were introduced to them is it was somebody the Borg were fleeing from.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh boy, here we go.
Watch out.
Yes, sir.
There's a book that came out in the 70s called The Monsters of Star Trek.
Ooh.
And they had 2 different covers, one with the Gorn on the cover and one with the Mugatu.
The Mugatu is a classic.
Yes.
Yeah, that thing was terrified me as a child.
I've got a Beanie Baby of a Mugatu, except it's a Beam Me Up Baby.
Oh. That is a novel and a pun. I love it.
That's
I like the Hornet, because you think it's a monster, and then it's not.
Again,
Yes.
there's Star Trek.
Yeah, the Horta is a great example of we don't understand. I mean, it is so alien, we don't get it at all. And that was the one I was thinking of when I said, until Spock mind melds with it, and then we understand it.
Damn it, Jim, I'm a doctor, not a bricklayer.
Any others before we move on?
It-
Yes.
Oh, well, a whole class of monsters would be the space blobs from Star Trek, like the obsession creature that works down.
Yeah.
The immunity syndrome, where they had like the life-sucking, energy-sucking amoeba, essentially.
Oh, yeah, the one that killed Kirk's brother.
Yeah. Well, that
That was the
was
blobs.
different. That was the flying little thing.
That was
Oh,
the
okay.
Vulcan science ship, I think, the blob was.
Yeah, they took out the Intrepid. which-
Yeah, Intrepid, space amoeba.
Right here?
Yeah. How do you define monster?
No, wait a minute.
Good question.
How do you
I have an
define
answer.
it?
When you say monster, I mean, you mean something that attacks humans or?
No,
No?
not necessarily.
I mean, to me, tribbles.
Yeah.
You know?
Oh, now that's interesting.
But they're so cute.
I know they're monsters.
Okay, so
They were like, amoeba or something, I don't know, they just kept
the great thing about,
multiplying.
first of all, that's a great answer, thank you, because that opens up the whole other conversation.
Okay.
Klingons would agree that triples are
That's
monsters.
exactly.
But I never would have thought of that, because to me, a tribble is a chattel or
It's an animal.
it's an animal, but it's an abundant food source animal.
Right.
Well,
It is the food source.
yeah, but if you're Captain Kirk, you think it's on the border of being a monster. If you're Klingon, you hate the thing.
But if it eats all your quadritriticale.
There we go, all right.
Yeah.
I mean, they were so prolific, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it's like, and they just kept coming and coming.
Reproductive terrorism.
Because that was actually a question I wanted to ask the panel, is like, what's the difference, and I was gonna use triples as the example, what's the difference between a monster and just an animal?
Yeah.
We talked about this earlier today. It depends on.
Triples are very invasive species.
Yeah.
Well, but they are literally an invasive species, but part of the story is that they were removed from their high predator environment.
Right.
They evolved in a high predator environment. You take them into a bar with no predators, and they're out of control.
Yeah, they're kudzu.
There you go. There you go. Thank you.
Yes.
They're furry pets.
Yes.
Yes.
But the answer to your question, Gary, is that I think it depends on your point of view. If you're the eater or if you're the eatee, it changes that. It either.
What time is it?
The little creatures
Okay, I won't say that.
Todd uses to put in your ear, those surely aren't malicious, they're just creatures.
Yes, thank you. So did everybody hear that?
Yeah.
That was actually part of the description of the panel, was the thing you put in the ear, but I was like,
I can't remember what they were called, but.
Well, this lovely lady had a.
yes, go ahead.
Okay, if we're gonna go with tribbles, we can also go with the moopsie, because the moopsie just runs everything in half.
It's the Moopsie.
They are.
I'm a season behind on Lower Decks.
From the animated series, the new
But I've seen the memes. I live on the internet, so yeah.
No, lower decks is great, yes.
Mentioning the creature that went into Chekhov's ear, there's an issue of Famous Monsters of Filmland that has Khan with the bloody face on the cover, and it mentioned Star Trek II could arguably borderline into horror fans' genre because of that.
Oh, yeah.
Because of the excessive bloody makeup and the creature going into his ear. So it's, you do have a little bit of crossover once you have Trek going into Famous Monsters of Filmland.
Yeah, the ear creature traumatized a bunch of us young trekkers that we didn't know that was coming.
I know a lot of horror fans. I know a lot of horror fans, and a lot of them, the ear thing is over their line.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a beautiful engine. One moderator. Do we have a hand over here somewhere?
I was just going back to the tribbles, and, I mean, there's a fine line between a tribble and a model line, but they both have the same.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so we crossbreed.
I'm just saying, though, a tribble just ends in multiplying. The model line, you get it wet, and then you got thousands of them.
You could presumably get.
Again,
my
it's not
tribble.
like
Has anyone got any trouble wet?
They don't have a lot of defensive or offensive armor, so I'm not really afraid of trouble.
No, tribble is
I
not.
suffocate from them falling on you like
No, the
personal.
tribble's only defense mechanism is that it's
That
born
it's cute.
pregnant.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, the cute thing.
And the cute thing is what kept it alive.
Yeah, but if they.
Yeah, if they were,
If they quadritriticale after midnight, though.
Alright, we've got off
but
topic.
if the tribbles were like small, scaly, with like spines, you know, they would, no, there's no way O'Gro would have gotten one, they would not have been built in Enterprise, they wouldn't have eaten the quadritriticale, and then that entire colony would have been lost to the Klingons, so,
Yes, so thank goodness for
They need
tribbles.
a medal.
yeah.
So but that does bring us back around to the question, which is what is a monster? I think it's one of the great unanswered questions that we're exploring. Bill's got his hand up.
There is one that scared the heck out of me when I was a kid, and it's technically not a monster, it's a machine. That's the Doomsday.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
favorite
What
episode
is
of
that
that
thing? Who made it? Whatever. And it's like, it's so weird.
Yeah.
It's technically a monster, I would say. I would actually say, yes, the Doomsday Machine is a monster. It has intent. It's technically mindless, but it does have an intent. It seeks out planets, and it has no regard for anything that lives there. It just is motivated to survive by chopping up planets, eating them on, and then just going forward. It's a lot like Jason Voorhees. It's a lot like other monsters where you can't talk to it. It's like the Terminator. You can't talk to it. You can't reason with it. All you can do is fight. You know, what Kyle Reese says, there's no negotiating with this thing. It will keep coming until it's destroyed.
But by your own reasoning, how is that any different than the salt vampire except in scale?
It's not that different, except that the salt vampire, when it's fed, could be reasonable and peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is another fine line, because, if in the right circumstances, if the creature, for lack of a better word, if it can live in peace and not eat its neighbor as long as it's in its proper environment, or it's fed or whatever, and it won't mess with anybody, then I don't know if it technically counts as a monster, whereas Hippos and the Doomsday Machine and the Terminator, it does not matter, they're gonna keep going.
Hippos are monsters.
So basically, a lion is not a monster unless it starts killing because it likes killing.
Right.
The ghost from the darkness.
Oh, that's a good movie.
Killing because they got angry.
They got a taste for flesh.
Yeah.
Can a
Yes.
monster be a monster if they're not evil?
One second,
I was
what?
gonna say, like, if a monster isn't like evil, like if there's no like, can a monster be a monster if there isn't like an evil bone in his body?
Yeah, again,
It comes down to
like,
Depends
intent
on how
there, like,
big
is
it
a
is.
vampire a monster? It has to be.
Yeah, well, think Frankenstein too, he's misunderstood.
Yeah, but vampires don't have to kill you, they can just swerve delicately from punches for people.
They can
so we had a hand in the back,
Yeah, I was gonna bring up the crystalline entity,
right?
because it really is a monster, but, you know, it did what it did, and it was just kind of there.
Yeah, the crystalline entity is one of those ambiguous ones. They really don't explain what's going on.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the reasons it's a tragic story, because you get that feeling that we were just about to make a communication breakthrough with it when it gets destroyed, and that is what makes that woman the monster.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, again, me, okay, and I would love to have a panel on just the monsters of Star Trek, you know, I mean, it's like, but I still think, I'm thinking nomad, I'm thinking, you know, organic versus non-organic. I mean, you know, we can put them in classifications, of, you know, or something like that, but aside from the tribbles that I love, I'm thinking the next one was nomad. I mean, you know, if I had to grade them, like, oh yeah, the Doomsday Machine, love that. And I'm still an original series person, you know? I mean, how many of us here have had Star Trek weddings? Raise your hand. Okay, see, you know, I mean,
Just making my fingers get
we
bigger.
are, yeah, so, I mean, you know, this is where I'm coming from, Star Trek original series, right? Okay. But why don't we, I mean, I'm hoping, fingers crossed, next time, you know, I really would love to embrace the discussion of the monsters of Star Trek. Ta-da, you know, big black banner, you know.
I have good news for you. We have 32 more minutes.
Ah,
Because I would argue that Nomad and V'ger aren't monsters. They're just
V'ger.
following their programming.
yes.
There's no free will there, there's no volition.
Yeah.
Well, that kind of ties into the Doomsday Machine.
Right.
Yes.
Where does intellect come into it? Because again, the salt vampire, we could have that argument of, is it intelligent?
Supposedly they had a culture though, because wasn't that dude an archaeologist?
Yeah, the archaeologist says
Well,
that.
if you're building buildings and have writing, I'm sorry, yeah, we've met the sentience quotient.
So let's try this since we're at the halfway point here. Is
So then why
there,
doesn't she try reasoning with them and
Because
going,
she's dumber than shit.
there we go. She's the Ernest P. Worrell of her
so
world.
I'm gonna let the panelists take first stab at this, but this is sort of an open question. Is there an unambiguous monster in Star Trek?
Aside from the ear thing?
Skinnity.
Skinny, so Aramis we covered, yeah, all right, so is there a second one other than Skin of Evil?
What about the rubber dude?
Hold on 1 second.
Oh, the Wolf and Fold, yeah.
Oh, yes.
Red Jack.
Basically.
Red Jack.
Okay.
Jack.
So,
What do you
What
think?
that was, but-
like,
It's
everybody in the room will pretty much agree.
Okay.
It's a weird question, because Star Trek really loves the morality.
Wow, that joke just died. Thank you, everybody.
So you're talking about a creature that essentially is a serial killer.
Yeah.
It's a,
It lives to kill. It's a psychic entity. It doesn't have to. It's just doing it because it's fun.
right,
It's
so.
like the
so
dark
let's-
side of that thing the Dr. Crusher kept in her little vase. Who gave her the happy jollies at night.
Yeah.
Oh, the green candle. I've seen 2 people cosplay that in the last 2 years, and that just makes me happy to my nerd core. It's usually a green bodysuit with green felt and stuff. Anyway,
Different band.
yeah.
So-
Yeah. Star Trek After Dark.
So we assume, or we attribute monsterness to the wolf in the fold because of the enjoyment of killing. The salt vampire is just hungry. They need salt. They're hungry. They feed. So are there any other like, I think we earlier established that Khan is a monster because of his behavior, you know, that whole genocide thing.
Well, is he a monster? Is he a monster, or is he just monstrous?
Well, like I said, since he's genetically engineered.
I was gonna say, could we argue that
Yeah.
he's just doing his programming?
No, I don't think so.
That, he wasn't engineered for that, was he?
No, wait, hold on.
Engineered to like, you know.
I was engineered to rule.
To rule, yeah, to be the dom.
Could be, I guess.
Yeah, if you are genetically programmed to be the benevolent dictator of the entire planet,
Yeah.
are you
I don't think benevolent had anything to do
Benevolent
with
wasn't
it.
the
well,
word.
from his point of view.
Yeah.
To be
But are you-
the necessary rule.
So is he murdering people, or is he doing his job to make the place? Like, this goes back to, there's a lot of
He's just early
stories
Nietzschean, guys.
where, well, but he's interpreting control as violence as a means
He
to
is,
peace.
Nietzschean.
Like, you people need someone to rule you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, he's not wrong about
So
that.
we're talking about, like, Loki pulls the whole thing.
Oh,
Isn't
it's about-
this better? You're on your knees.
Yeah.
This is your natural state. I would put Khan in that same category with Loki, where he's like, he really truly believes that all of those little small deaths, if there is such a thing, are
Like
actually
Thanos.
part of his program.
Like Thanos.
Oh God, Thanos. Oh.
Well, since you mentioned Loki,
Yeah.
and now that we're talking gods and monsters,
Yeah.
we should mention Apollo, who
Oh,
was
yeah.
Adonis.
Yeah.
And I should mention, anybody who hasn't seen it yet, Hallmark has a new ornament out of the Enterprise gripped.
Oh,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Okay, I need that.
glorious. Must have.
Yeah, I don't know if I would call Apollo a monster, because, but he's definitely a bad guy.
He's kind of like Khan in that sense, in that, you know, he thinks he's a god who has to do X, Y, and Z, and that
But
that gives
I
him the
think
right
of-
to lord it over humans.
Yeah, but I
He
think
thinks it a lot easier though than Khan does.
and I also think there's more. He's not as driven as Khan, and I think
Khan
that's
enjoys it
another.
a little too much.
And I think that's part of it too. I think there has to be a drive.
Well, I mean, there's two Khans. There's the Khan of the Spacey, and then there's the Khan of Wrath the Khan whose wife is dead, who's
Yeah.
settling.
And those are the only two. keep going though.
You are correct.
Yeah.
There's Shah Khan.
That's the point, is Wrath of Khan, he's been pushed into a whole nother level, whereas in the first one, yeah, okay, he's got a drive, but he accepted going into a colony.
He's kind of gone into Ahab space.
But also, yeah, but one of the really great things about Meyer's take on Khan, which is the only one, is that Khan really has a reasonable excuse to be a jerk by the time Kirk finds him again.
Yeah.
Or not Kirk, Chekhov finds him again. I mean, he was put down on this planet, the planet was just almost completely destroyed. They were lucky to be alive. He's had to learn how to survive. He even said the ear monster, whatever that thing's called.
CD eel, I looked it up.
Was what?
It's a CD eel.
CD, thank you. The eel thing is killing his people because they have no idea about it, because the entire ecosystem and biome has been violently changed by the sun of the planet. So it's like, there's a part of me that's like, yeah, Khan is really an ass, but there's a little justification there. I mean,
He is
really
an understandable villain.
really
But
is.
he is justifying that the Federation never went back to check
Yeah,
on these.
check on it.
That is-
Well,
That's-
to be fair, they went back and went, oh, the whole planet's gone.
It's really funny that she goes with Bobby Bay, because it's like very much like when you think of Australia, they just dump those poor
Yeah.
transport people, it's like live, die, I don't care, whatever.
And I will make this argument of the Federation, I can give them not following up, because again, it was like just a few years later, the planet blows up. 4 moves to where 5 was. Or 5 moves to where 4 was. So all there is there's this ring of destroyed planet, and they barely detected life signs when they were scanning the planet looking for, can we drop the Genesis device here?
Yeah.
And they're like, we think maybe we saw something possibly. So you gotta figure the Star Trek's vessel, the Federation vessel which came to check on Khan a few years later and found this, went, oh, ooh. Yeah, let's not tell, I mean, I wanna see that as a Lower Decks episode.
Yes.
Yeah, let's not talk about, yeah.
Yeah.
Let's not tell the Admiral that he killed all these people.
Yeah, but again, we're back to is Khan actually justified to kill all those people and torture all those people?
A Freudian excuse is no excuse.
Yeah, I mean, what he did to those poor scientists
Oh,
work on
yeah.
Genesis,
yeah.
that was monstrous.
Mhm.
It was, I
Oh,
really
yeah.
think it was an issue.
I think, well, here's the thing, and this is something that I find gets lost a lot in modern media discussion. I can understand where the villain is coming from, but I don't have to, and I can sort of sympathize with them, but I don't have to I can empathize with them, but I don't have to have sympathy with them, like the Purple Man from Jessica Jones. I fully get why he is the way he is. It does not justify him.
No.
Same thing with Khan. I get why he is the way he is.
Yeah, so
but
we're back to Aramis is delighting in what he's doing, the wolf is delighting in what he's doing, and the tribbles are just pains in the butt. And the salt vampires are just.
well, if you never mind.
I just remember that in the Star Trek Next Generation episode, I forget the name, where Picard lives that whole separate life. Right. A friend of mine is convinced that those aliens are the worst ever because they're gaslighting him. Because in his memory, he's like, this isn't my life. And they're going, oh, yes, it is, over and over and over, through an entire life. And yes, you get what they're trying to do, but it is kind of cruel when you think about it.
Yeah, and I want you to,
It is.
yeah, and think about it like this. Say tomorrow morning you wake up and you're 20 years ago. The last 20 years of your life didn't happen. Are you going to remember everybody you had a relationship with 20 years ago and what that was like and what you were doing? And, you know, I can't remember what I did 5 years ago.
Sure.
Yeah.
It's one of those things like, would you like to go back to be a kid again? No!
So this is
I
off
don't want to go through the
topic.
third grade again.
This is off topic, but I've always wanted to do a panel on the use of therapy in Next Generation and how
Oh, yeah.
brilliant it is with Picard and everything. 'Cause Picard is messed up,
Yeah.
8 or 9 times. So okay, that and Picard being messed up brings us to the question I was kind of saving, which is, are the Borg monsters?
Yes.
Yes, I was
Yes.
thinking about that, yes.
What?
They're like an ant colony.
Okay, then we're not. We can't deal with that question. We don't have time. Did you say which Borg?
Which board?
Yeah, no, we don't have time for that. Let's no, I'm gonna draw a box around it, and I'm gonna say the Next Generation Borg. Let's just stay with that, because I know there's like 19 versions of the Borg now.
Well, even in next gen, when you bring in you and then you bring in.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with you and everything.
I would say they are, especially the way they are in next gen with before we get a Borg Queen.
Yeah.
Where it's just again, it kind of goes into the Doomsday Machine thing, which is they have a set of programming. Your wishes don't come into it. The Borg are going to look at you and go, okay, you've got something we can use. We're going to take that and then eradicate everything else.
But that all goes back to the lesson of the Gorn and that test, which was, are you just going to let it murder your way, or are you going to go to that higher level? And Star Trek is always about going to that higher level. And the Borg are not at that level. Their level is just, kill,
Consume,
assimilate,
consume.
Because to me, the Borg are very much like a beast. Like, yes, they are a whole race, but they're a hive mind too. So they're all, so that would,
They're scarier as a hive mind personally.
Yes.
I hate the Borg Queen idea.
But again, we're back to the Borg are on a mission.
Mm-hmm.
We don't agree with their mission, but they're on a mission, and they don't kill as much as they assimilate. Like some people.
That's a form of death.
Right, exactly. Some philosophers would say that is death.
Yeah.
But I would argue that, I know I violated my own rule by saying in Picard, they established that they can be recovered. Well, Picard, hello,
Well, we got that with you a little bit.
Yeah, we got it with you also. So the individual Borg drones are redeemable. They're individually redeemable. I think we've established that the Borg have one thought.
Consume.
Yeah, assimilate, consume. But even they say that they're going for technological perfection. Right? So this is like an entire culture that's based on OCD.
The Borg are a science experiment that got out of hand.
Well, they're like run amok capitalism.
I mean, it was the whole, run amok capitalism, run amok science, because like you said, their goal is to improve. They're the Cybermen.
But then the point is, if all they are is a program that keeps running, are they,
You gotta
or
figure
give a life form at all? Are they considered sentient?
I need to get hold of Keith DeCandido. I need someone to write that story of the Borg shifting over from the race that whatever they're doing this cybernetic enhancements for to improve, and then when does that switch flip to the Borg are in control?
I think
and
it was
lost
when
their
Elon Musk
individuality.
made X instead of
Yeah.
I I can't remember if it's canon, but I think the race that was originally the Borg had encountered V'ger. And V'ger, in his pursuit for perfection.
Yeah,
See, I heard-
somebody connected those things.
Yeah, I think Roddenberry half jokingly at a convention said the V'ger, the race that V'ger ran into was the Borg, and they were the ones who fixed it and sent it back.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Actually, I like that kind of, oops, watch what you said out of space kind of thing.
Oh, yeah. The fact that so much of this stuff is our own blasted fault in the first place is.
Yeah.
It's
I also
actually
love,
funny.
and I think it's still canon, there's a Peter David book called Vendetta,
Oh, yeah, that's a good one.
which they run into the prototype Doomsday machine, and we find out that it was built to fight the Borg.
Wow.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Oh, and they-
That's a great story.
They can attach the board to anything. Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, no, but it's one of the best books, Star Trek novels out there.
It does a good job.
So did I convince anybody that the Borg aren't monsters?
No.
Okay, I got one up here.
Well, I wanted to kind of point out, we talked about the difference between good, evil, and monstrous.
Mhm.
You can't, good and evil, you can kind of see outside of how much of a threat it is, but whether something is monstrous or not is directly related to how much of a threat it is to you, to your way of life, to your very life, to society in general. On that scale, yes, the Borg are monsters. They are a direct, and you have to act quickly. You can't really debate moral things when dealing with the Borg because they are monsters. But all this we're talking about has more to do with whether they're evil or not because of motivation and all that.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. I will say this, and this is a point I meant to bring up, so thank you. Something can be a monster without being evil.
Yes. Yeah.
The creature from the Black Lagoon is a
Well, that's blood
monster.
sucking triggering TOS.
Yeah. But, the creature from the Black Lagoon is a monster. It's not evil. It's just a creature trying to survive, and these people came to his lagoon, and they had what was coming
But you
to
have
them.
to have a moral process in order to come to
Frankenstein's monster is a monster. I mean, it's in the name, Frankenstein's
Right.
monster.
Yeah, but that's.
But he's not evil until Bela Lugosi's Igor's brain gets put in there. But that's a whole other.
And not so much what Shape of Water is about, he's a
Yeah.
monster some, but he's really not to others.
Yeah, the real monster in that is, what's his name?
The scientist.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they got right.
I mean, the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park aren't evil, but they're
But they're
definitely
definitely
monsters.
Definitely monsters.
The shark from Jaws.
Is a monster.
Can anything be like small and not be evil and be a monster? Cause like,
Mogwais?
Many cats.
Gremlins.
Tribbles. We covered tribbles.
COVID.
Well, the problem with tribbles is you're just monsters, they can't really do anything, they can't get back out.
yeah.
They're easy to defend against. And you buy a kilometer to eat them.
So we got about 15 minutes left, and I just officially want to go ahead and call that you guys are being inconsistent.
Really?
Yes, really. A bunch of Star Trek fans are being inconsistent. What a shock.
Well, again, we're only doing what Star Trek does, which is wrestle with moral dilemmas that have no true answer and are part of the eternal human condition.
Yes. Sorry, Gary took the ending of the panel right.
Keep our advertisers in there.
No, that's really the point of this discussion, is like, when I made the monsters in the description of the panel, the eel in your ear, and Khan, I knew that was, people were gonna go, what? And so part of that is on purpose, part of it is because I was going after Nicholas Meyer stuff.
And you're a jerk.
Yeah, and I'm Star Trek. So what ends up happening is, again, this is one of the reasons why I'm a huge Star Trek fan, it's one of the reasons why Picard is my favorite of the captains and et cetera, is that he allows these moral problems to be part of the discussion. He doesn't try and punch or kick or screw his way out of these moral problems. I'm sorry, what time is it?
You're good.
So, thank you.
No kids in the neighborhood.
I would never call the Borg monsters because of the same reason why all of the same reason why all the program stuff or the animals that are just consuming.
I know I've said that they're a monster, but I can also see the argument that the Borg are as much of a monster as a hurricane.
Yeah, but you look at 7 of 9, and you go back, you're not necessarily a monster at being a Borg because it's not a choice. And you were talking earlier, it's a choice to be a monster or not. You're either evil because you want to be, or you're trying to survive. Well, the Borg is its own thing because if you think of people like 7 of 9, she was a little girl taken into the Borg, she didn't have a choice.
Well, again, it's again when the moral dilemmas that Star Trek loves to explore. And you can apply this to any culture as a discussion. Individual Borgs by themselves may not be a monster. You may be able to break them out of that cult mentality that they're in. You may be able to get them away from the Borg hive-mindedness and, I'm trying to think of a better word than reform, restore them, their individuality, make them a person again. Whereas the Borg as a race are definitely a monster.
Yeah, I think the problem is muddied by the Queen, because she does definitely have freedom of action and can know what she's doing is wrong, and yet she still does it anyway. The rest are just following orders. But
Yeah. And as I was saying earlier, they're much scarier without a queen if you just keep them a hive mind.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. When we were talking about the Borg, one of the things that came to my mind was our fire ants monsters. I mean,
I saw Empire of the Ants. They're bad. They're bad.
One of the things that we could argue about, and Carrie and I probably will, is that if the ants are this big, are they monsters? But if they're the size of a truck, are they monsters?
Look, when something is 10 times its normal size, it's a monster.
That's true.
I mean, but an ant, that would be
Attack of the giant colossal man is a monster.
So the 50-foot woman is a monster?
50-foot
The
cheerleader.
50-foot woman is a dream we have yet to achieve.
Like an alpinist maybe, but.
Look, there's a whole online community. I'll need to edit later. Anyway.
Yeah, well, she
You know what? One of the scariest things all of Star Trek to me is, this is a joke. It's when Kirk is fighting Kirk.
Oh yeah, with the evil and good sides get split in the transporter.
I'm Captain Kirk.
So he's,
No, I'm talking about a different one.
You're
No, I'm talking about Undiscovered
We're-
Country.
Which one?
Undiscovered Country when
Where
they're.
the
Oh, the
shapeshifter.
Yeah, the shapeshifter.
Not everyone keeps their genitals.
He's
in the same
found himself
place.
alive, because there's also one with Rook.
Yeah.
Where they make the android place.
Yeah, he fights Bowie's wife.
Yes.
yeah, they really, really want his stunt double to get a lot of work.
I know.
So is the evil half of Kirk when he gets split, is that a monster?
Yeah, that's one of the episodes I really love because the way they address that dilemma of how much evil do you need to be an effective person?
Yeah.
You know, because there are parts of that evil personality, the drive, the ability to make a decision. There are some parts of that that you need, and again, it's the whole Star Trek, what makes you human.
Yeah, he's a psychologist.
Went behind Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde.
Oh, yeah.
There's a good side and a bad side,
Mhm.
and if the good side wins out, fine. If the bad side wins out,
Yeah,
Khan is an
psychologists.
example of where the bad side wins out.
Yeah, psychologists talk about how everybody needs a certain degree of narcissism, and if they don't have it, then they're.
If you don't have it, someone will provide it for you.
Because when the little dog dies from it.
Yeah, because it's kept separated too
Yeah.
long,
You know.
and because that can't have been a comfortable one. That poor dog.
Any questions, guys? We got about 10 minutes left. Okay, stunned silence is the goal, so that's great. So upstairs, anybody got any follow-up? Yes?
one last one, you keep saying the salt vampire is not a monster. Well, then how do you
Well,
describe?
he says that.
Well, how do you describe the Wolfman then? Because most of the time, he's good, he's got a conscience, he knows he's doing
The
wrong.
Wolfman counts as a monster.
Yeah,
He
but I'm
just
saying
has-
that if you say the Wolfman's a monster, then how can you not say the salt vampire is a monster?
Well, see, I say he's a monster. You have to answer this question. Is the Wolfman a monster?
I would, maybe, I'm not sure. Can I go back to Jekyll and Hyde instead? Because I think that was a little more.
Jekyll and Hyde and Wolfman are very, very close.
They are very, very close, that's why I'm playing that card. So in some interpretations of Jekyll and Hyde, Hyde is completely out of Jekyll's control. In some interpretations, Jekyll chooses to become Hyde.
Ooh.
So the answer is different depending on, is he taking the medicine in order to become Hyde because he wants to, or is Hyde completely Hulk Banner out of control? He's lost control of that half of himself, and it's right. So Hyde is the walking embodiment of id. He wants to have sex, and he wants to eat, and he wants to drink, and he wants to punch people. right? So is that a monster, or is that half of the we're back to the evil curve. Is that the half of the program? Is Hyde a monster because we really don't want it to be okay that that exists in all of us? Or is he a monster because he truly is separate from...
Well, in the original story, that's the whole reason Jekyll does the experiment, is he's trying to destroy, find, locate, isolate, and then remove the evil from a person. And it ends up,
It's a little Aramis.
and instead he creates the split personalities. And,
Yeah.
Yes, he wants to be like the Krell, and basically take their id away entirely into its own separate monster.
Yeah.
Dr. David Banner, the Incredible Hulk
yes.
monster.
Depends on the version of the whole.
That's true.
Yeah,
Depends on the version.
Yeah,
because it's definitely a Jekyll and Hyde riff when he first appears, and he is
Yeah.
no intellect. You know, when the Hulk is no intellect, I think he's close to a monster then.
Yeah.
But then you have the versions of him where he has some intelligence, and then there's the professor where they're fully merged.
When they have him, the latest version of Dr. Banner, and now he's like real popular, all the kids want to have their pictures made with him.
Yeah.
He's wearing glasses and he's like a real intellect, and I mean, wow, what happened to Hulk smash,
Well, the thing is, even when he is the dumb kind of Hulk smash Hulk, he's pressed into being destructive because everybody.
He just wants to be left alone.
Yeah, he wants to jump away and be left alone,
Right.
Yeah.
but they always keep chasing him,
Yeah.
shooting missiles.
Puny humans not leave Hulk alone.
Yeah,
Hulk
exactly.
smash.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
It's a Thunderbolt raw.
So again, in that case, I don't think even is that the only one I would consider Hulk as a monster is the one who has no intellect at all and is just rage.
Right.
But again, that also falls under he's a hippo. Just don't get near him.
Oh yeah. Most of the problem with the Hulk is when humans won't get the hint. They really, if they would just leave it alone. If we had just checked on Khan more often.
Again, I will defend that. We tried.
Well, no, I mean the Khan story is really a fabulous story.
It is. There's a reason that there's a reason why most people count Trek 2 as the, and I'm not saying it because he's here, but people rate it as the best Trek movie.
Yeah.
Some people. Yes.
Remember, the original title was The Vengeance of Khan.
Mm-hmm.
He was after
Actually, according to his
for any
memoir,
reason.
Yeah.
the original title was Undiscovered Country.
True.
And it was somebody in New York who said Vengeance of Khan,
Yeah.
or Revenge of Khan is what it was going to be. And then Nicholas Marr said, George Lucas is doing this Revenge of the Jedi. He's not going to like that. And then they said, okay, we'll change it.
But then he used Undiscovered Country for the sixth one. That's
Yeah,
amazing.
That's great.
Recycling,
That's
I like
great.
that.
Yeah. There's a reason a lot of authors won't tell you ideas they haven't published because they will find a way to incorporate a different way.
Yeah, oh yeah, we throw it in the drawer and use it later, absolutely. So speaking of Undiscovered Country, we haven't talked on that much. This is still Nicholas Meyer.
I love those dogs. The weird prison dogs with the big those things are adorable. They're a monster, they're adorable.
Do we, was it Valerius? Is the Vulcan, is she a monster? Because of her complicity in the conspiracy to murder people?
I would say she's evil, but I wouldn't call her a monster.
I'm not even sure she's evil. I think she's someone who's completely convinced. She's an ideologue.
Now, I will say that Spock becomes monstrous when he basically psychically
He tortures
rapes her.
her, yeah, I know, the mind.
Yeah, there's that moment.
Do you know who was originally supposed to be the killer in the whodunit? It was not her. It was Savick.
Yeah.
Oh.
They originally
Yeah, it was
Savick.
originally supposed. Yeah, that was originally supposed to be Savick. It was her through line,
That
and
would've been
then
a
Robert
great
Curtis
through
wouldn't
line.
come back, if I remember correctly.
I
That's
think,
when they
according to his
decided-
memoirs, he wanted Kirstie Alley back,
Yes.
but she couldn't. And I think he thought that it would just confuse audiences if it was Robert Curtis, so they just did it.
Yeah, and there are plenty of Vulcans at this point, so yeah, so change it to a different Vulcan. So, but one of the things that I love about Undiscovered Country is that you once you get done with all the cool stuff going on with the prison dogs and the shape changers, it comes back to every single group that was involved had somebody betray the cultural ideology. This is where the monster perception comes in. is there were humans who betrayed Earth and the Federation in order for this to happen. There were Klingons who betrayed the Klingons in order to have this happen. And the whole time the Romulan ambassador is going, I moved my bishop to E7. So yeah, so who's the monster in this story?
Definitely the Roman.
Yeah. But, yeah, the whole point is Kirk thinks all the Klingons are monsters, and he has to learn otherwise. And he's got, like Khan, has a good reason. They killed his son.
They killed his son.
Yeah, no, you're right. You said it as a joke, but yeah, the true monster is bigotry.
Yep.
She's, I want to make sure she gets credit.
Okay, so Laura, this is the point where you say things out loud so everybody can hear.
I know, I'm joking. Yeah, the true monster is bigotry,
Yeah.
which I mean, we've all seen it when fear is what drives some of the worst things that we've seen humans do. Is fear, it's bigotry, it's fear of the unknown. So that's what happened. They would willing to betray their own people to prevent who they thought were the true evil from being.
Yeah, pro tip, if what you're considering doing betrays every moral, ethical standard you say you swear your life by, maybe it's a bad idea.
Yeah.
You know, because that's the thing, these Federation officers, these Starfleet officers betray everything that they supposedly believe in because of that bigotry against the Klingons.
They serve the greater good.
Right. It's like, we can't work with these people, we can't work with these Klingons, we have to wipe them out while we have the opportunity. Never mind the whole, but your whole thing's good.
There's a YouTuber, I think his name is Steve Shives, does great Star Trek reviews, great deep conversations about Star Trek. And he had a YouTube video called The 7 Worst Star Trek Admirals Ever, and he covers the whole everything. And he starts out the video by going, it took me like a week and a half to get it down to 7, guys. Because it's like every time an admiral pops up, you're like, 50% chance he's evil.
If you're a Star Trek admiral and you get stranded on a planet, you're either going to die or turn evil, unless you're Kirk. I mean, that's just the rule. We saw it how many times in the original series alone? Eva Mista.
Something that I thought was really kind of funny when I watched it, there's somebody who's in Next Generation that pops up and he still is playing a Klingon Worf.
Oh,
yeah, he's playing like his lawyer or whatever.
Yeah, that was great.
And
That was a
like,
little bit of
what?
stunt casting.
I was watching with my parents, and they were like, are we sure? Because he looked different. So they made him still look like a Klingon, but different.
Yeah, he was like, he's Worf's grandfather?
Oh, so, okay, it is, they did think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great stunt casting.
Yeah. We're almost out of time.
Anybody out there have a monster that you wanted, hoping we were to discuss that we haven't got to yet?
The Jack the Ripper alien from Wolf in the Fold?
Yeah, I think we talked about
We
it.
did mention him.
Oh, you did mention him, I'm sorry.
Briefly.
Yeah, he's one of the irredeemable ones.
Yeah, he's definitely, especially with the whole, the really evil thing about him is not only is he going around and getting his jollies, killing people that he doesn't need to do it, it's that he then leaves somebody else to take the fall.
Yeah. Doesn't even have the moral strength to fess up.
Or the ego to fess up. That's the interesting too, is he's not there for his own glory. He's just doing what he does.
What about the Medusans? The one, if you look at them, you go crazy?
Is there no truth and beauty or something?
Yeah, that
With,
Wow, that's
yeah, an animal dark.
That's force of nature stuff. That's like being angry at a tornado.
He doesn't seem bad when he and Spock are kind of sharing brains, so I think it's just unfortunate you can't look at him.
Yeah, the Medusan ambassador is actually a very good character, very moral.
He just makes humans flip out.
Very
What about the Sargon dude, the glow people?
Oh, those people are dicks. They're not monsters, they're just dicks.
All right, can I drop a bomb right before the end here? Are the Q monsters?
No, they're just dicks.
There we go.
Yes.
Corbin Burnson's okay, but the rest of them seem to be on that
Okay,
same.
no. The Q hired Corbin Burnson, the Star Trek hired Corbin Burnson to play Q's attorney.
Yes. Yeah, he's okay. The rest of the Q we run into. And I love the fact that they've tied in the Trelane and the,
Yeah.
but also if you read the Star Trek comics by IDW, if they did, I think it's like an 8-part miniseries.
Oh.
That I can't remember the name of it now, but it's the Organians, the Trelane, Q, all the god entities grab all of our main, Kirk, Cisco, and pit them all against each other to determine who is the best god race.
Oh.
They're basically, what are those little animals you chase after? They Pokemon.
Yeah, they Pokemon the Spectrum. And, yeah, it's pretty cool. It's a wild, do you remember the name of the story? You're my Star Trek.
I know you're talking about, I can't remember. IDW is amazing with what they've done.
Especially they did a run of.
And they have a whole run of individual comics of the Gorn and the Klingons, so they actually break it down and analyze different.
Spotlight, that one's called Spotlight.
Spotlight's good. And they also did a great run after the 2009 movie show that crew of the Enterprise going through the original TOS.
We were just
episodes.
talking about that, and it was short-lived.
It was very short-lived, but it was cool. The only one I didn't like was the one where Gary Mitchell showed up. because they cop out. They cop out on the ending.
Do you guys have any idea how often I've said I didn't like the one with Gary Mitchell on it? Speaking of, we're over.
Speaking of dickish people, but he qualified.
Look, morals are for men.
I pay bills.
My name is Gary Mitchell. I am the co-director of the American Sci-Fi Classics Dragon DragCon. You will see me there. I am the producer and co-host of a horror podcast, A Podcast of Amontillado.
I like that.
I have a QR code postcard that you are free to have, and I have stickers that people are free to have. And you are.
I'm Laura. We're finding at conventions. Like,
You are the Laura.
Yeah.
You will obey.
We're training the next generation.
You can find me at bill-bridges.com. I will also be on the Twilight Zone panel coming up.
Oh, yeah.
Later. And I would buy all of you shots of Trania, but they don't seem to have it.
What's in this stuff?
And I'm still Darren Bush. I'm still the media track director here at Monsterama, at least until they catch me. And we are, not to compete with the Twilight Zone, but I'm going to compete with the Twilight Zone. In about a half an hour, we're going to do another monster panel where we're going to talk about collective art forms. We're talking about crowdsourcing and open sourcing monster art forms, which is going to be amazing. And I'm really sad I'm not going to get to do another Twilight Zone panel with Gary. But thank you guys. We appreciate you being here. Round of applause for everybody.
Live long and prosper, eat crap and die. It depends on which
Oh, so it's here, but we didn't get it on.